right, it is 7:02 on the regular meeting of the City Council on August 4th. We will call this meeting to order. I would ask those, although this is off the agenda, I would ask those who are both willing and able to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we begin the meeting, I'd like to recognize a very special and honored guest. We have among us State Representative Hoheisel, who's with us. Thank you, sir, for blessing this chamber with your presence, and we appreciate state legislators coming in and being a part of the process. So thank you, sir. Is there any other elected officials who I might be missing? Seeing none. With that, Madam Clerk.
2023 Annual Operating Budget and 2023-2032 Capital Improvement Program.
So we'll recognize staff in one moment, but just for folks who are joining us for the first time, the purpose of us having an evening meeting is to allow public comment. And so how an input from the budget, because frankly, that's what makes this budget better, is when we have a budget that reflects the values of the community. So we want to first just say thank you and let you know we appreciate folks who have come out during off business hours. I'm sure many of you are at work all day and now you're joining us, so we want to thank you for doing so. The way the format works is that the staff will present the budget, and we as the electeds can ask the staff questions about that budget. And the goal is to get all the information out about the budget that we might have been asked in side conversations with other members of the community or in emails. And then we'll open up to public comment. So public comment is once staff is done and we open up to public comment, you can actually just approach the podium here, and you will have 5 minutes to talk and to deliver really any message you want to us in reference to the budget. We do ask that you use your time, and by that, it's not meant to be a back and forth. So if you ask us a question, if it's a technical question, we'll try to get staff to answer it pretty quick, but we don't want to use up your time. That is your time. So if you ask us a question, you pause and you wonder why we're pausing, we want you to use that time up and not make it our time. So we'll let you completely finish, and then we will respond to any questions afterwards. If you go over your 5 minutes, I'll kind of do one of these. If it keeps going on, we aren't going to cut anyone off. We just want you to complete your thought so that we can be respectful of the people behind you who also want to comment. So you have a timer there. It will tell you when you're close. Sometimes people get really into what they're saying, and I'll just try to give a subtle message that, pretty much wrap up your thought, and then we can go on to the next speaker as well. If you need more than 5 minutes, we're not passing the budget today. So please feel free to follow up with your council member or to follow up with myself, and we can continue the discussion. And that, again, is the purpose of this meeting, is to have another format so that folks can come and talk to us about what they want to see out of our financial budget. So with that, the chair recognizes the city manager, Manager Layton.
Mr. Mayor, thank you so much. Before we get started, I just want to recognize that Councilmember Ballard is participating in this meeting electronically, so she is online and will be able to hear all of our comments. On July 12th, I presented the proposed operating budget for the years 2023 and 2024, and also the 10-year capital improvement program. Elizabeth Goltry, our budget officer, is going to go and make a presentation today. It'll be pretty detailed because we recognize there are folks in the audience who were probably not able to attend before, and we want to make sure that everybody understands the full breadth and depth of this budget and the recommendations that we're making. I also wanted to note that the council asked us a number of questions during the July 12th meeting and subsequent to that, and we have attempted to address all of your questions to date, and we'll continue to do that through the process until final approval in August. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Elizabeth.
Welcome.
Welcome, thank you. My name's Elizabeth Goldtree, as the manager noted. I work in the finance department, and I'm here today to present the operating budget and the capital improvement program. Just an overview of my presentation. At first, I'll talk about the budget development environment and catch people up mostly on what we discussed during the retreats in April and May. Then I'll provide an overview of the operating budget as well as the CIP, and then end with a calendar for the rest of the process. As the mayor mentioned, this is not the day that we're approving the budget. We will still have another budget hearing on August 16th, and then adoption is scheduled for August 23rd. The budget and CIP documents are both available online if you use this QR code. Additionally, all budget documents can be found at all Wichita Public Library branches. The budget's been posted online nearly 4 weeks now, so we're hopeful that people have had an opportunity to log on and check it out, and have got some great questions and comments tonight. The development of the budget framework, like everybody is experiencing inflationary pressure right now, so the budget includes inflationary pressure that we're facing on the expenditure side, but also strong economic conditions locally that impact the budget on the revenue side. Resident engagement and planning efforts have been incorporated into the budget. Resident engagement included visiting all of the district advisory boards, the social media town hall, and the online budget simulator. And when we refer to planning efforts being incorporated into the budget, that's things like the pedestrian and bicycle master plans, the library branch study, the ongoing effort of the tree policy, and so forth. We're happy to announce that more ARPA funding is available to be directed to capital projects. It'll be a total of $33.3 million in this budget. We were able to do that because ARPA funding wasn't necessary last year to support the general fund. Finally, we've identified long-term financial sustainability issues. The ARPA funding is only available through 2024, and that being the case, the budget in the long-term projection is unbalanced in 25 and 26. Just a refresher, this is our mission statement. The budget highlights are arranged by each of the mission statement topics, so we'll go through those in a bit. Just a really high level overview of the budget. The proposed mill levy is flat. It's the same as last year, 32.758 mills. The budget is balanced for all 3 years, 22 to 24 in the general fund. As I mentioned earlier, ARPA funding supports the general fund as well as the CIP. And finally, we're happy to announce the CIP, as proposed, is within debt parameters. In the Keep Wichita Safe goal area, that includes primarily the police department and the fire department. The CIP includes 9 new fire stations, 3 police stations, and $74 million for public safety equipment. Additionally, on the operating budget side, the animal control responses will be improved. That's something we discussed during the city council retreats. The concern was about getting animal control officers out into the field sooner. That will be accomplished by adding kennel technicians to perform work at the shelter, additional kennel technicians. Violence Interrupter Initiative is funded by ARPA. And finally, the police department response to emergency mental health calls will be improved by embedding social workers in the police department. The second goal area for the city of Wichita is grow our economy. The first thing here is that the planning department staffing will be increased to address development activity. This really resonated when we attended meetings at district advisory boards because they've seen just how much development activity there has been as of late. A 20-year special assessment pilot program was recently launched. And one of our social media town hall topics was about illegal dumping. We received a lot of constructive feedback about quick cleanups as well as enforcement, and both of those are funded in this budget. ARPA funding is also being used to support the Grow Our Economy goal. A total of $20 million is allocated to negative economic impact initiatives such as workforce development, small business assistance, the Corner Store Initiative, and affordable housing. These have all been initiated in the April to July period. The third goal area is dependable infrastructure. One of the things that we've heard is that there's a resident interest in increasing crosswalk marking frequencies. This budget includes funding so that those markings will be repainted every 2 years. there's a lot of funding in the CIP for maintenance. One of those things, $32 million, is for city buildings over the next 10 years, and a total of half of the CIP is dedicated to maintenance of current assets. 141 of that maintenance dollars goes to maintaining streets. One of the things that was considered during the retreats was paving unpaved dirt streets. In the CIP, we're happy to announce we were able to include $31 million in the CIP for that initiative. Initially, the paving will incur on dirt streets around schools. If you're interested in learning more, I encourage you to visit the budget website. All the handouts for that retreat are loaded there. Another element of dependable infrastructure is multimodal. That includes bikes, pedestrian facilities, and such. There's $42.4 million in the CIP for those type of initiatives. Includes bike paths, sidewalks, and signals. Our fourth goal area is living well. One of the things, all the things on this slide are related to the library. Overdue fines are eliminated. This was a program option that was proposed by the Public Library Board. The materials budget is increased. This will be directed especially to online content in the Library of Things. And a family literacy coordinator position will be reinstated to enhance, kindergarten readiness. Additionally, there will be funding will be made available in the budget for more tree planting than is currently occurring, and funding from the Addiction Settlement Recovery Fund will be directed to the Mental Health and Substance Abuse Coalition. One of the, and if you go into the CIP, you'll notice that there's a number of policy issues, a number of highlights, and one of them is the Century 2 maintenance. There's been developed a 10-year comprehensive maintenance plan for Century 2 that's funded in the CIP, with and part of the funding is from the ARPA dollars. The first priority for this project will be the blue roof. Also in Living Well, there are a number of other CIP projects, such as in the parks, such as dog parks and shelters. The CLAP master plan improvements are included, and if you're familiar with that park, you'll notice it is the CLAP keeper that's on our cover this year, as well as improvements at Watson and Proct. And then 4 branch libraries, which will be renovated with $6.5 million in ARPA, and that aligns with the branch library study. And that will finish out the branch library improvements. Our last goal area is well-run city. So the budget reflects efforts to increase entry-level wages. That was a topic of conversation last year, and that's guided this budget development again this year. During the start of the pandemic, non-commissioned positions were frozen or not hired during that time. Since we received ARPA funding, we have been able to start filling those positions, but recruitment is ongoing. The budget is hopeful that we'll be able to fill those positions, but at the same time reflects salary savings due to difficulties hiring positions positions, since we had such a long period when we weren't. So this is what the general fund budget looks like. It's a total of $276 billion. 700 is the old thing. The biggest part of the budget that funds the budget is property tax, followed by franchise fees, and then sales tax. On the expenditure side, police, fire, and public works make up over 70% of the general fund budget. This is just a portion of the public works budget. Most of it's actually in water and sewer. And then when you look at what the general fund budget funds, the largest portion, over almost 3/4, is salaries and business. Salaries and benefits. We're in a very service heavy, we have lots of employees to do a lot of these services. Most of the services that we provide are provided by employees, such as police and fire, followed by contractuals, which is services, and then commodities, which is materials. I've mentioned before that ARPA is being used to fund the CIP and the operating budget. The biggest change in this chart compared to the chart that was included in the budget last year is the infrastructure projects line. Because we didn't need to use ARPA for the general fund last year, we were able to redirect it to infrastructure projects, which is also for good news for two reasons. It is helpful since the cost of projects has increased due to inflationary pressures, and it also relieves some pressure off the GO at-large debt capacity calculation. On to the capital improvement program, which is our 10-year program for our major investments, streets, buildings, facilities, parks, and so forth. Different than the operating budget, but very much connected, as you saw as we went through the highlights. There were some CIP highlights and some operating budget highlights on the same slides. Just like the operating budget, it's aligned to the city mission. It's also aligned to the community investments plan, which is a comp plan for Wichita and Sedgwick County. The CIP is sustainable based on debt metrics, and it's also consistent with prior policy decisions. And when we say that, what we mean is that the starting point for the CIP is the last year's CIP, and then also that we use things such as the branch library study and the bicycle master plan, the pedestrian master plan, the maintenance study on Century 2 to guide the CIP process. So where does the funding for the CIP come from? You'll notice here the largest slice is the sewer utility. That's largely because of the bionutrient removal project. And then local sales tax is another really large slice, as well as GO at large. And then where do the CIP dollars go? Again, the top one is sewer because of that big project, followed by streets and then freeways. It's important to point out that on the last slide, there was a big slice for the state of Kansas. A lot of that is support for freeway projects, and we're grateful for that. The policy parameters on the CIP. The debt service fund mill levy will remain flat at 7 mills, and the modeling for the utilities matches their rate setting models that they present to the city council on a relatively regular basis. The debt levels are consistent with guidelines as well as the fund balances. So when we talk about debt levels, this green line is at 66.6%. So if you were a person were going to apply for a mortgage, this would be the equivalent of them spending 66.6% of their income on their mortgage, which would be heavy. So, but the purpose of the debt service fund is to service debt. It doesn't have other responsibilities, so the 2/3 is okay. But what you'll notice in the near term is that we are using far less of that capacity to service debt, which is good news. Part of that is due to the ARPA funding. But the important thing is to not go above that green line at any point during the planning period. And the CIP has achieved that. So calendar, this is your last slide from me. So I'll leave this up. August 16th, there'll be a budget hearing at the 9 a.m. City Council meeting. And then on August 23rd, usually that's not a regular meeting, but it will be. That will be an agenda item 2. We'll still have a public hearing during then. The public hearing will be closed, and then it will be time for adoption of the budget and the CIP. So I don't know if I do the recommended action right now, or if you, no? Okay. So,
Is there
that is my
questions for staff? So I just want to touch on this one more time. We talked about the overarching budget, however, and correct me and help me explain this to folks who don't have to live this every day. The general fund is over the next year. We set that in August, but we're on a calendar year as our fiscal year, and that is should be thought of separate than the CIP, which is a 10-year plan that is more about maintenance of our large assets. Is that the most simplest way to describe that, or could you help me out?
Yeah, I think that's a good explanation on the operating budget, which is the bigger book with the blue cover. Those are annual budgets, and yes, the city council approving them, it creates an appropriation, and that budget is ready on January 1st. The CIP, on the other hand, is more of a plan. Each of those projects is actually initiated one by one at a city council meeting, so you do that on a pretty regular basis. But we put together the entire plan so that we have projections for what the cost of it all will be.
And just very last question, I got into a bit of a tussle with someone in the news about this. The blue roof, does that have to be blue, or is that open for discussion?
I would say from a budget standpoint, we're just in the business of including the cost in the CIP.
Okay, good. I had to tell the news anchor I don't get into roof politics, but they put the word blue in there, so just wanted to let
Yeah.
folks know that's still open at this point.
Yeah, I guess it is currently blue, so,
Okay. So
The only color you guys see, right?
pardon?
Green.
green's the only color you guys see, right?
Yes, or the comm team might want it to match our logo, right?
Right. Oh, maybe we can. Okay. Further questions for staff? See none. Thank you so much, and we
You're welcome.
appreciate that you'll be on hand in case some of the questions and input from the public become more technical. So with that, like I said, it's not really a free-for-all, but if you see an opening, please feel free to stand up and make your way to the front, and we'll recognize you, and you can speak for up to 5 minutes. Usually it's like that first person, and then everyone else starts going. So who wants to be the first?
I just want to know, what is CIP?
Oh, good question. And you can come to the front, actually, and have a follow-up if you like. If not, I can repeat your question. The question is, what is the CIP? And that's what I was trying to express as well, is to make sure that folks know that these are somewhat two separate buckets that we're discussing at the same time. But I'll defer to the city manager for a more comprehensive explanation.
Mayor, it's called the Capital Improvement Program, and it's our 10-year infrastructure plan.
I'll call on people. Okay, here we go. Got that substitute teacher energy right now, so I might call on you if you are here to speak. Go ahead, sir, and welcome, by the way. Oh, we ask also to say your name and your address if you feel comfortable saying your address.
Okay. Hi, my name is Robert Gibbs. I live near the Sedgwick County Park on the west side of town. And I guess I'm going to spend most of my time just expressing my feelings about the current capital improvement plan and the current city budget. And then I will reserve questions for the end if I have a question for you or if you have a question for something I'm
Of course.
talking about. So part of my concern with the capital improvement program and the current city budget is the fiscal responsibility over time. The development scene in Wichita is largely car dependent and centers urban mobility based around cars, and car infrastructure is very expensive over time. And something not taken into account in the program is the growth in electric car sales in America. And something important to note about electric cars and cars in general is that the damage they cause to roads and car infrastructure grows exponentially with the weight of the vehicle. With the growth of electric car and e-mobility in the city of Wichita over the coming 10 years, with expected government federal funding for electric car tax rebates, we're going to see a lot more heavy vehicles, even smaller vehicles that weigh as much as what a gas-powered truck used to weigh back in the day, or like the upcoming Hummer that weighs nearly 10,000 pounds, on par with commercial vehicles, but in the hands of everyday citizens, except now this will be everyone moving along the street. This will cause a lot more damage to city roads. I'm concerned about city solvency over time in having to pay for all of the freeways, the road infrastructure, and intersections and so on going forth into the future, especially in light that the city budget is planning on freezing and then decreasing city public transit over time. And we also saw in the previous years of city management, we have been eliminating city bus stations and cutting service. This is one of my concerns with the city moving forward. I think the city should push more for public transit alongside the growth of pedestrian infrastructure and cycling infrastructure. And I think an important aspect that would allow us to move into the future without having to do a complete upfront investment would be to update the planning requirements for the city, and in particular, the road design guidelines for the metropolitan area of Wichita and for Wichita itself. This would allow that over time, every time an intersection or a section of road is redeveloped and updated, it would be updated to newer standards and newer guidelines that would allow the road to be more pedestrian and cyclist friendly, so you wouldn't have to do everything at once, and instead it could be spread out over time. Now, on the topic of financial solvency, I would like to recommend that the city do a financial analysis of the city, looking into the road infrastructure and also tax revenues from property taxes across to the city to see the disparity between the car infrastructure and see where in the city we're receiving the most tax revenue and where we're spending the most tax revenue. Something that is not taken into account when expanding the city and planning newer regions for development is the fact that the cost of infrastructure for the city is the same no matter if it's 1 person per square mile or 1,000 people per square mile. And so we might see in these financial analysis of the city is that the city center, where dense populations live, are funding lower density suburbs of the city. And how we could remedy this is through the expansion of mixed-use zoning throughout the city, and then also, like I mentioned before, public transit would allow more people to have access to these mixed-use zoning regions and would allow us to upzone other areas of the city so that they're no longer financially dragging on the city budget. And with the 1 minute I have left, I'd also like to talk about the police budget, which is going to be expanding again over the next year, which I think is fiscally irresponsible considering the previous history of the police department in Wichita and previous reports coming out from the city of white supremacist incidents going on within the police department. I can send you the report recently. It came out in Wichita newspapers. One of the solutions I would like to propose is Denver's city council started a program called STAR, which is a community-oriented policing or involvement program that has reduced crime rates in the areas they patrol by 34%. They have had 0 arrests in their 6-month trial period, and they have reduced costs by 75% compared to the police force. Now, going into the future, if Wichita implemented this, considering that our police budget is 30% of our city budget, this could save upwards of 20% of the city budget for other things like social programs, improving infrastructure, and bettering our education system. Thank you.
Thank you. And first, I just want to start off by saying that that was a great presentation. I don't think I could do that without looking at notes, and it shows that you came here prepared. So thank you for being here, and thank you for that. A couple things I actually want to touch on, because I think you're spot on. We need to be planning for today, but also be looking towards tomorrow. And I think you bring up some really good points, particularly about if there's a switch over to electric vehicles, a lot of our repairs actually, or road money comes from gas tax. So if we see more wear and tear on our roads, but less gas tax coming in because people are using less gas tax, then how are we going to, I guess, accommodate for that? And I'd like to direct you to State Representative Hoheisel, and maybe he can figure that out at the state level. But I think you're bringing up some really good points, and a lot of that has to be changed at the state level. I do want to just touch on, but it's something we should be thinking about at this level as well, and possibly incorporate in our state agenda or state level agenda. I do just want to talk briefly, and maybe the manager can jump in to give more details. When we talk about the overarching police budget, I want to also point out that we are actually, at this point, unless something changed, putting in about, I want to say about $700,000 for social workers. And when we think, and that is technically goes into our police budget, but it helps us expand our community policing strategy, which is to make sure that if our officers are called to a mental health crisis, they can respond with a mental health expert. And not, respond in a police way. They can respond in a more professional way with the professionals who are trained for that. So that's technically in our budget, but it's under the overarching police budget in general. Also, for example, when we talk about more...
Can I make a comment on the mental health professionals?
Yeah, just one more second, and then I'll give the floor back to you. Okay. But I'm not trying to to rebuttal. I just want to bring more clarity to what something might be under the umbrella of the police budget, but a lot of our social services either go under police, who are forward-facing, they're already out there, so it's technically under that budget, or it goes under housing. Those are kind of our two departments that we utilize for social services. But another thing that I just want to point out is we have, for example, our animal shelter. is technically under our public safety budget. But I think a lot of people kind of disconnect that as a function of community policing, but it's under that budget as well. So sometimes I get folks who come up and say, hey, you need to cut the police budget so you can put more money into the animal shelter. And I just wanted to clarify that when you start looking through those line items, some of this stuff that I think people want to see, we are addressing, but it's our budget for public safety is going to look different, I think, than other cities as well. And because we have really, with some of, particularly the social workers, really two different departments that that we fit these programs into, that other cities might have a third department because they might be set up a little different. But go ahead and please respond. I don't mean to cut you off.
With the funding for social workers, are they going to be under something like ComCare Crisis? Or are they going to be actually part of the police department? Because in the budget, it was talking about the mental health care professionals being there to advise police officers.
And I'll defer to the city manager for a more comprehensive review of what the strategy is moving forward.
Mayor, thank you. The social workers will be embedded in the police department, and they're there to help on scene and also to help if they can't arrive on the scene, but to help those who are there and to help talk them through the person who's in crisis and to give the guidance that's necessary to be able to address that crisis successfully. So they will be trained social workers in partnership with the universities here in town.
Okay, so with that, I would like to comment that my suggestion of the STAR program in Denver is because it's a fundamental shift in how we view policing in the city. I do not want to see police officers with a therapist next to them while they're responding to a domestic violence case. I would rather a qualified team of mental health care professionals and social workers be able to give the gravity and the levity necessary for each case, rather than have someone on the scene with a weapon in a domestic violence case where someone might be triggered by such show of force at their home. And then along with this STAR program, it's the shift in how we view it is not to have a mental health care professional at the police department. Again, it's to have people that change how we're responding to public emergencies, rather than just having nicer police officers.
I would love, if you wouldn't mind, could you shoot us a link of that program? I would love to
Yes.
review that further. And yeah, our goal is to deliver the best community service with that community service mindset as we can. So we are looking at other cities and pulling out best practices. So thank you for bringing the STAR program to our attention. And I'd love to get a link so that we can look even further into that.
Yes, and I'll send it along with a compiled document with everything I talked about today, and also including companies that do the fiscal responsibility and checks of the cities, if you would like that as well.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, this issue came up at our last discussion of the budget as well, and I know Councilmember Ballard and I talked a little bit about it, and that has to do with alternative transportation. And I just want to make sure that we highlight the fact that, first of all, the CIP includes over $42 million in what we call multimodal projects, which are not street-related projects, but they're trails, there's sidewalks, bikeway improvements, and some other pedestrian corridor safety improvements. So that's a significant increase from where we were maybe even 6 or 7 years ago in terms of your commitment to alternative transportation. Also, we've received funding for a service plan, the development of a service plan for transit, a long-term plan. And I think that's been a priority of the council for several years. That work, I believe, will start in 2023, and we'll develop over that year a comprehensive plan for moving forward, and we'll be bringing some things. There'll be obviously opportunity for community input, and then the council will be determining our strategy for going forward and probably expanding, or at least changing our strategy for public transit.
Thank you. All right, next speaker. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
I'm Alicia Wilson, and I live in District 3. And I'm here about the animal.
Can you pull the microphone just a little bit closer to you? I
Sorry.
apologize.
I'm here for the animal control issue. I've been attacked countless times in my neighborhood. I have had one dog seriously injured. We were stalked, and he was taken. He was pulled back to me because he had a harness on, but otherwise he would have been probably killed. A couple years later, I had another dog that was killed in my driveway. She was on a leash, but the dog was loose. When I called animal control, it took over an hour for them to come because they were doing another bite call. A few months later, one of my foster dogs was attacked on another side of town. Again, it took over an hour for animal control to come because they were on another bite call. And that dog also died. I've been trapped in my car by loose dogs that would try to attack my neighbors, tried to attack my husband. And every time it takes over an hour for animal control because there's only one officer on the street. I've been paying attention to this for 2 years now, and for that whole 2 years, there's only been one officer ever on the street, and it takes them over an hour to respond. And I'm not sure how hiring kennel staff is really going to help this situation because we live in a rather large city, and to have one animal control officer at any time is not enough. And there's many times that you can't even get them to answer the phone because they don't have enough staff to answer the phone. I had that problem a couple of weeks ago, and I report loose dogs in Clap Park all the time because there's always loose dogs in Clap Park, and they have yet to come out. The police did come out one time, but I feel like something needs to be done. We've waited too long. This has become too much of a problem. There's too many dogs being killed, people being bit. This is a safety situation, and kennel staff is not going to really help it, in my opinion.
Right. Well, no questions, but thank you.
Okay.
Welcome.
Hi, my name is Ellen Corner, and I am the District 1 representative for the Wichita Animal Shelters Advisory Board. And I'm here to speak about the animal control budget that's been proposed by the city. The proposed budget by the police department asks for $425,000, which would entail 4 ACOs, additional ACOs, and 5 part-time kennel techs. The budget proposed by the city has, I think, decreased it, I'm not quite sure because my numbers are just iffy, to about $100,000. No ACOs, additional ACOs, but 4 or 5 kennel techs. I think there's 5 part-time kennel techs, 5. Are there 6? 6, okay. I think one of them is held over from a ACO job. On July 20th, the Wichita Animal Services Advisory Board voted unanimously to back the original police department's proposal and not the city proposal. And I'm going to give you some reasons why. First, there are 3 shifts for animal control, 7 to 10, 7 to 3, 2 to 10, and then an overnight shift. When there's been times when they've been full staff with the kennel techs, and they still only have 1 to 2 animal control officers on the street, usually only 1. I don't know how many they have overnight. I think sometimes overnight you have to call 911, and sometimes your call is not returned by animal control. They also have said that it's not just a staffing for cleaning, but there's also a problem for people that are on vacations or ill, and that's why they don't have a number of ACOs on the streets that they need to have. Of the 21 positions, not all of those are street positions. A lot of those are in the shelter positions, so you have to take that into account. When they tell me that the reason that they don't have more than 1 or 2 officers on the street because they have to clean the clinic, there's a shelter, I'm sorry, I keep getting my clinic mixed up, the shelter, I tell them, well, let's see, they clean the shelter from 7 to 11, and they still don't have any more than 1, I don't think even 2, in the second shift, which has nothing to do with cleaning the kennel. So if they're fully staffed at 21 ACOs and their second shift is from 2 to 10, why did they only have 1 officer at that time? That's because there's not enough officers. They say that it's also very hard to keep part-time kennel tech, so that's why sometimes they don't have the numbers of people to clean the kennel, and it could be helped by the additional staff to do so, but not necessarily for second shift because they're not even included in the cleaning of the shelter. I have been with the animal shelter and worked with them for many, many years. With the rescue that I work with, and I think I've dealt with the animal shelter for over 25 years. And this is the least I've seen of officers on the street lately, the least. There used to be 4 officers on the street at all times, 1 for each quadrant. They also seem to be very short for staff on the weekends because 21 officers divided by 3 shifts for 7 days a week is not enough. Many times, as the person who spoke before me said, that there's no one to answer the dispatch, okay? You call in and you get a message. And the message says, well, we're busy. If you get this message, leave a message and call back. I have done that numerous times and have not gotten a call back. When was it? Last Sunday, I had a contained stray picked up by the public, running at large, and I called animal control. It was Saturday night. Sunday morning, they're not open until 1. Sunday morning, I called dispatch, left a message, no answer, called again. No, I didn't leave another message. I just called, thinking I would catch them one of these times. Through the whole day of Sunday, nobody answered the dispatch phone. Nobody. It just went to a recording. Animal control issues do not just happen from 8 to 5 on a workday. They happen and occur a lot after that time because people come home, they think, oh, animal control's not running, we don't have any officers, so they let their dogs run loose. And there's no animal control officer to deal with that. Also on the weekends, the same thing. People walking their dogs in the park. No animal control officers, to really mess with it, so the people are allowed to run their animals loose at the parks. Our streets are not safe, and it can be seen by, an example by, the number of dog attacks and bite attacks on humans, the number of dog attacks and on other animals, and that I think the person before me just said she's been involved in that, and I know many people who have. And many times the animal that is the victim ends up being killed. Also, the number of citizens that do not feel safe on our streets. And I know I have seen on Nextdoor, there's a lot of chatter. People say, I can't walk my dog. I can't even walk because there's too many dogs in the street. And same thing in the parks. And last, which is in my district, and I don't know if anyone else's district has this issue, is there are a lot of people who have lost their mail service to their door because of dogs running at large. And that is a great difficulty for some people who then have to go someplace to get their mail. When they used to be able to get it in their door, and they could walk out the door or get it in the mail, or at least on the street in front of their house. So what's causing this? And the reason that I feel that the cause, in fact, I don't feel, I know, the cause is because we are not being proactive. We're being reactive. We don't have enough people to react. We don't have enough officers on the street to do simple things like monitor our parks, making sure that if someone who's got their dogs running loose off leash gets ticketed. If you ticket people who are letting their dogs run loose in the park and threaten to take their dog away, that's going to get through the neighborhood, and they're going to say, don't let your dogs run loose, because if there's an animal control officer, you're going to get ticketed. So being proactive is where we're going to get out of this mess, because it's really getting bad. We need a minimum.
Your time is up a little bit.
Okay, just one more sentence.
Of course.
Okay, we need to have a minimum of 4 ACO officers on first and second shift, period. We need to make sure that we have those. I don't think what we have now with just hiring part-time staff to clean the kennels in the morning is going to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next speaker.
Hi,
Hello.
guys. I'm
Welcome.
Ladina Dockery, and I'm here representing Make ICT, our local makerspace. Basically, we saw that you guys had some funds in the budget for 50C3s, but there wasn't a whole lot of detail for it, and we would like more detail. Specifically, anything if we know for capital improvement, because we have some roof issues that we'd like to take care of. And that's pretty much it. I'm not complaining, I just want information.
Of course, shoot us an email and we can forward it on to our staff to see if there are any opportunities for Makerspace to apply for possible grants. If not, then we can possibly get you connected with other funding sources as well.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Of course, thank you. All right, who's next? Welcome.
George Theo Harris, 2115 South Chautauqua, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council, City Manager, City Legal. Boy, there's a lot of talk on next door that I figured this place would be packed, and two people come to talk about what's going on with dogs and stuff in Wichita. I'm pretty disappointed. But anyhow, there was a post on Nextdoor about asking for more animal service officers, and it is a coin flip whether the city council might add any. I have a guarantee to get them hired just by everyone stepping up and getting your dog licensed. The fee per dog is just $15 to start, add $3 for not chipped, and $18 for not spayed or neutered, and $10 if there is not a fenced-in backyard, for a grand total of $15 to $46 per dog. If you have 3 or 4 dogs, there is an additional maintenance permit of $25 per year. Any more than 4 requires a variance. It is said only 30 to 40% of people have their dogs licensed, means $1.1 to $2 million is not being collected and could be used to hire many more than 4 additional animal service officers. Just the messenger here, if you get a postcard with this information, please comply and help keep our streets safe and from stray animals, and fund proactive patrols for neglect and cruelty. I've been told we can't get more of the citizens to do that, the right thing, and get their dogs licensed. I really think there needs to be an audit done over at Animal Services. John Stevens, may he rest in peace, strongly urged the captain several years ago to let this happen. Do we really know more animal service officers will fix the obvious failures? Then there was a concern, if we reap this $1 to $2 million in license fees, would it be used at the animal shelter? Or would it go into the general fund, which it does, but then I've also been told that it would come back to the animal shelter if they got an extra $1 to $2 million in license fees, they'd do the right thing. So, excuse me, my phone was on vibrating. Give me a cheap thrill, sorry. Chief Moore, you are too, with lots of O's, too nice of a stand-up Christian guy to be dragged down by this backward-thinking city. I told you I would back you for the chief job, but my advice to you is run, Lem, run, as in run as far away from this ridiculousness as in Forrest Gump. My city councilor was with me Tuesday night from 7:38, and his car was rummaged through from some of the people that he most likely is trying to help, which I just think is just a shame. And we've got to do something because it's running rampant in our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, Council. My name is Terry Olin. I live at 1811 South Topeka Avenue, and I am also on Next Door. Thank you, George, for coming. I wanted to see if you would be here. I am a cat owner, and I'm a responsible cat owner. There's been a lot of talk about, from dog people, well, why don't the cat people have to license? Well, if it'll help raise the funds for the shelter, I would say, let's put a license fee in place. I have indoor-outdoor cats, and yes, they do roam. They roam about 2 to 3 blocks from the house. They don't have a big territory. All of my cats are spayed, neutered, chipped, vetted. I mean, I'm a very good owner of my cats, and I feed strays. So I would like to recommend, I'm willing, I mean, it would be more money out of my pocket, and I'm not a rich woman, but if it would mean helping raise funds for the animal shelter and more control officers, I would be in favor of licensing cats. I don't collar my cats because one of my cats got caught on a chain link fence and almost strangled herself to death. And since then I said, no more collars. So, you know, it just, we do have a terrible problem. Every time I see loose dogs running, I stop my car and I try to call them in, try to get them in my car so I can take them to the shelter or find the owner. But it really is a problem, especially southeast Wichita from what I can see. So we appreciate any help you can give us on this, and thank you for allowing me to speak my mind.
Thank you for being here. All right, who's next? And feel free, once the other person or the previous speaker has concluded, just to make your way down. All right. Well, I think Megan's serving drinks in the lobby in case anyone wants to. No, I'm just kidding. Again, if you are, if you leave here or you're watching on television right now or on online, please remember if you have follow-up questions or follow-up information, just reach out to us. We do have a few weeks until we finalize this budget, and our goal is to get as much input as possible. So please continue this conversation. If there is no more discussion, now bring discussion back to the bench. Is there any discussion with the council at this time? Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Bob, just because animal control was brought up a couple times, could you speak to the numbers there with the ACOs versus kennel techs? Or I don't know if that's a limb question, but.
I'll give you my what I remember. And I think the speaker, one of our speakers, had it accurately. There are 21 animal control officers that are in the budget and will continue to be in the budget recommended for the next 2 years. There are currently 4 kennel techs, and part-time kennel techs, and there'll now be 10 under the recommended budget. So the idea is that if we can get fully staffed, that we would not have animal control officers cleaning the shelter. Instead, they'd be on the street. And so I did take some notes regarding how we schedule staff, and that will be something we'll continue to look at so we can be effective during the periods of time where they're really necessary and needed in the neighborhoods.
Do you have a estimate of I guess, how many officers that may free up? Not the exact, but just kind of approximately.
I don't, you're adding 6, so in theory, you should be getting 6 on the street.
Okay.
But I hesitate to say that because I'm not as familiar with the operations. Not sure if there's.
If we could just have it by the, if not tonight, then by the 23rd, man.
Welcome.
Thought that was me, sorry. Dan East, Captain over Admin Services, which does include animal services. So by freeing up, the shelter opens at 11. We have to have it open, ready to go for the public. And so by freeing up those animal control officers that are assisting with those duties, we hope that all of them, there may be one that would have to stay in due to paperwork, overnight intakes, some of those things, but all of them could get right out on the streets with, in very short time of when they first report to work. The big issue is the report to work calls start coming in the morning, and unless those calls are deemed dog bites, vicious animals, then they're kind of behind. So they're 3 to 4 hours behind on calls. So by having those part-time kennel techs cleaning in the morning, what we're hoping to see is that all of those officers that are reporting to work, taking into consideration vacations, other sorts of leave, things like that, they'll be right out on the streets.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And also thank you to George and Ellen for continuing to talk about this.
Sir. Councilmember Hoheisel.
Real quick, sorry. Howdy. Are your guys', do you have any openings currently, or are all your positions filled?
We currently are, next week, we will be interviewing for, I believe, I may get these backwards. We have 1 or 2 animal control officer openings. We had 2 that just resigned. And then we also will be for 2 part-time kennel techs that are currently budgeted.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Yes.
And also to the city manager. I appreciate the added kennel techs. I would like to look into the possibility of adding more officers as well.
Councilmember Buba.
Thank you, Mayor. Since we're on the topic of filling vacancies with animal control, I'm getting a lot of people reach out to me telling me that we're starting to lose some police officers because of the increase in pay over with the sheriff and the jail. Lim, can you tell me, I'm hearing rumors about 6, 9 people we've lost this week. Is there any validation to that?
Lim Moore, Interim Chief of Police. Not 9 at this point in time. I know we lost 3 for sure this week. One of the reasons, and we have documentation that they sign when they fill out, one of the reasons that was documented and was one's going to start another franchise on some business that he didn't want to disclose. One individual was because of all of the craziness going in society and just didn't want to have to deal with it anymore. And another said that he just this wasn't for him.
Have you seen an uptick and are we losing more officers than we normally do? Is there a trend or anything going on with that right now?
Well, what I've done is, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I did request from my payroll section 2 days ago to get me the number of officers, number of commissioned personnel that we have in staff currently, the number that we're actually down. So we're allotted 704. And I know we were down 50 before this last class. I can say that we were slotted. City manager allowed us to have a class of 40. However, we were only we were only able to fill 28 of those. And within 2 days, one of them dropped out of the class. We're down to 27. And that trend is mainly because, the way police are viewed in society and the way the Wichita Police Department is portrayed, within our community. So it's tough, and we're trying to work through it. But these are the challenges that we're working on.
Okay. Do you know how many open requisitions we have right now for police officers?
As far as requisitions, positions-wise?
Yeah, how many positions we have open?
Okay, outstanding. Well, there he goes. Captain East is right on point. So we have 707 commissioned and budgeted. We have 649 that are currently working. We have 58 openings. And so we have 28 recruits in the academy. And so with that, if you take the 28 recruits, it's going to take them the next 6 months to get to the academy, another 12 weeks to get through the FTO. So in about 9 months, we'll have 30 current openings if we were to stay status quo. However, we have people, and I can tell you that a study was done a couple of years ago to where there was over 100 officers that are capable of retiring at any given time at this moment.
So you've got a lot of attrition that could be coming this way as well.
Yes.
Do we have, and I realize you're just filling in his interim, and I appreciate everything that you're doing. Do we have a good plan to make sure we can meet those numbers?
Well, at this point in time, it comes down to word of mouth. And so aside from all the meetings that I'm attending, our officers, each of them are recruiters themselves. We are attending college recruiting events that they have. We actually had we might be, depending on COVID, going back out to the military bases here in the state of Kansas and the surrounding area in an attempt to recruit individuals that are well qualified getting out of the military. What I have found and seen in recent past months, people that are applying, we still have 300-400 people that are applying. However, the requirements to get through the process, you can't have a domestic violence, you can't have stalking and those type of things that you're convicted of on your record. So we have to eliminate people that are applying. So the expectation and standards to be a police officer haven't been lowered, and they're there. And so it's pretty tough to get people through the door.
Okay. I appreciate your efforts. Thanks for all your.
Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank the community members who are here with us this evening, and then any community members who may be watching online. I always say, I feel like the budget process and the budget vote is the most important vote that I make all year. Where you allocate your treasure is a reflection of your values. So we appreciate you being here and taking your time away from your friends and family to be a part of the process. Also want to thank our finance team. I just think they do an amazing job. I can't even imagine the vast amount of work that goes into this process. So please know that you are appreciated and your efforts are certainly recognized. And then I want to take an opportunity to thank all staff across the city. I know that everyone is exceptionally busy, and the budget process adds to everyone's already full schedule. So thank you for all that you do as staff. We are an exceptionally well-run city because of the staff in the city of Wichita. So thank you to everyone who's been involved in this process, and I look forward to a successful continuation of the process in the next few weeks. Thank you.
Bob, I just wanted to do a follow-up on the testimony of Interim Police Chief Moore. He mentioned that our police number, the enrollment class has been lower than what has been budgeted, and then went on to say that a lot of the strategy has been word of mouth. And I'm concerned about if that strategy, if we have less officers, more officers retiring, then that word of mouth is going to become even smaller when it comes to recruitment. Can we look into what are the best practices when it comes to reaching out to people who might think about being a police officer, but might not know what that process is? Especially, with the former police chief, he really stressed the importance of ensuring that our officers represent the diversity of our community, and went and chatted with people who might not see themselves as police officers, including a historically large class of women officers, and then I think the most diverse class we've had in the last few years. And I just want to know what strategies could we be utilizing so that we can repeat that success that we had just a couple of years ago to try to bring in that next generation of police officers to give Interim Chief Moore more people to work with. So if we could get a bit of a report on how can we give the police chief the tools he's going to need so that we can keep Wichita as safe as we can. Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. To add to what the mayor was saying, I would support interim chief taking the advice that Officer Moore had when he was a DARE officer and bringing back that red Corvette. I think a lot of the young folks will see that and want to be a officer.
Oh, the brainstorming's already begun. All right, well, it doesn't look like we have other members from the bench who are chiming in, so therefore, if there's no further discussion at the bench, then I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion has been made and then seconded by Vice Mayor Tuttle. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast their vote. Have received 6 yay votes. That motion passes. Councilmember Ballard, would you like to voice a motion at this point?
Yes.
Let the record reflect that Councilmember Ballard has voted to adjourn. With that, again, thank you all for being here, and we appreciate the continuation of this conversation.